On the night of December 25, 1875, a sudden, suffocating chill gripped the state of Mississippi. Across the nation, a collective tremor of shock and terror rippled through the air. The news breaking out of Clinton was unthinkable. Senator Charles Caldwell had been assassinated. It was a betrayal of the highest order. Buck Cabell, a white man Caldwell trusted, a man he called a friend, lured him into the shadows under the guise of a festive Christmas drink. But there was no holiday cheer waiting for him. It was a trap, orchestrated by a white supremacist mob determined to eliminate an unyielding black leader. A cowardly bullet tore through Caldwell's back. Yet, even as his lifeblood spilled onto the floor, Caldwell refused to give his white killers the satisfaction of seeing him break. In his final, agonizing moments, he stood tall, looked the racist mob dead in the eye, and delivered a chilling final decree. Remember, when you kill me, you killed a gentleman and a brave man. Never say you killed a coward. Seconds later, the mob unleashed a barrage of gunfire, riddling his body with bullets. An entire state paralyzed by grief, a nation shaken to its core. It begs the question, who exactly was Senator Charles Caldwell? What kind of man possessed a power so monumental that white supremacists felt they had to destroy him to preserve their own dominance? Born into the brutal shackles of slavery in the 1830s, Caldwell shattered every boundary meant to hold him down. He rose from bondage to become an absolute behemoth in the fight for equal rights, threatening the very foundations of the racist status quo. Long before he wore the title of senator, he proved he was untouchable, becoming the first black man in Mississippi history to be accused of killing a white man in self-defense and walk out of a courtroom completely acquitted by an all-white jury. Before we uncover the full, extraordinary depth of his defiance, kindly hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with friends and family to help us keep these crucial, eye-opening black narratives alive. And make sure to subscribe so you never miss our upcoming historic revelations. Without further ado, let us dig in. Born in Hinds County, Mississippi during the early 1830s, Caldwell entered a world designed to break him. He was the son of an enslaved black woman and a white father. Under the brutal laws of the antebellum South, the status of the child followed the mother. Caldwell was legally classified as property. Yet, even within the rigid constraints of slavery, Caldwell commanded space. He was trained as a blacksmith, a trade that required immense physical strength, precision, and intellect. In the 19th century, a master blacksmith was the lifeblood of a southern town. This specialized skill granted Caldwell a rare degree of autonomy and mobility denied to most enslaved men. He was not a man easily broken by the whip. His peers respected him, and white society watched him with a volatile mixture of dependency and deep unease. They recognized that behind his quiet demeanor lay a dangerous, unyielding pride. That pride was put to the ultimate test in 1868 during the chaotic, blood-soaked dawn of Reconstruction. Slavery had technically ended, but the white aristocracy refused to accept black freedom. Racial violence was a daily reality, used by whites to remind newly emancipated black people of their place. It was during this tense period that the son of a prominent white judge targeted Caldwell, seeking to humiliate or kill the fiercely independent blacksmith. In the 19th century South, a black man defending himself against a white man was considered an act of racial treason. If a black person fought back, it almost always resulted in a public lynching or a swift execution. But when the judge's son attacked, Caldwell did not beg, flee, or submit. He fought back with lethal precision, killing his attacker on the spot. Expectations across Mississippi were clear. Caldwell would hang. He was arrested and hauled before an all-white jury. The courtroom was a tinderbox, surrounded by an angry white population demanding blood. But Caldwell stood his ground with absolute composure. He did not play the submissive, apologetic role expected of black defendants at the time. Instead, he presented a clear, undeniable case of self-defense. Against all historical precedents, the all-white jury delivered a stunning verdict: not guilty. Charles Caldwell walked out of that courtroom a free man. He became the first black man in Mississippi history to be accused of killing a white man and win an acquittal. This monumental victory sent shockwaves through the Southern establishment. It proved that Caldwell was not just physically formidable, but legally untouchable. To the black community, he became a living legend. To white supremacists, he became a marked man. Caldwell understood that his personal freedom meant nothing if his people remained shackled by systemic oppression. In 1868, the same year as his historic trial, he stepped directly into the political arena. Mississippi was forced by the federal government to rewrite its state constitution to re-enter the Union. Caldwell was elected as one of only 16 black Republican delegates out of over 100 participants to attend the Mississippi Constitutional Convention. For the white elite, the sight of former slaves sitting in the state capitol debating the law of the land was an intolerable insult. The white press mocked the black delegates, calling the gathering the Black and Tan Convention and painting the black leaders as ignorant and incapable. But Caldwell and his colleagues quickly silenced the critics. They proved to be the most progressive, forward-thinking lawmakers the state had ever seen. Caldwell aligned himself with the radical Republicans, a faction determined to completely dismantle the old plantation slaveocracy. He did not advocate for mere gradual adjustments. He demanded total, unapologetic equality under the law. Caldwell became the chief architect of a vision for a transformed Mississippi. He fought passionately to embed provisions into the new Constitution that were decades ahead of their time. He demanded that universal male suffrage be permanently guaranteed to all adult men, regardless of race or previous condition of servitude. He championed the creation of the state's very first free public school system, explicitly stating that these schools must be completely unsegregated by race, creed, or color. He believed education was the ultimate weapon against generational poverty. Recognizing that white-owned businesses were already trying to enforce early forms of Jim Crow separation, Caldwell introduced an aggressive amendment. It imposed a massive $5,000 fine on any railroad vessel or transportation company guilty of enforcing racial segregation. He also fought to legalize interracial marriage and secure robust property rights for citizens, completely irrespective of race or gender. All of this made the white population furious. They viewed Caldwell's Constitution as an existential threat to white dominance. When the document was put to a public vote, white supremacist organizations launched a massive campaign of voter suppression, terrorism, and fraud, causing the initial draft to be rejected by voters. Eventually, a modified version was passed, but Caldwell's brilliant performance during the convention cemented his status as a political powerhouse. In 1870, he was elected to the Mississippi State Senate representing Hinds County. For the next 5 years, he used his Senate seat as a fortress to protect the fragile rights of black Mississippians, standing as a defiant wall against the rising tide of post-war racism. To understand the terror Charles Caldwell faced as a black senator, one must understand the Mississippi Plan. Developed by white Democrats in the mid-1870s, this was a deliberate, coordinated strategy to overthrow Republican rule and strip black citizens of their constitutional rights. The plan did not rely on standard political debates. It relied on open terrorism, economic blackmail, voter intimidation, and political assassination. White paramilitary groups, most notably a ruthless vigilante group known as the Modocs, operated openly across the state. They dressed in red shirts, rode through the night, terrorized black communities, and murdered local political organizers in broad daylight. The federal government, growing tired of the endless conflict in the South, began pulling back its troops, leaving black citizens vulnerable to a brutal wave of racial violence. Against this backdrop of terror, Senator Charles Caldwell refused to hide. On September 4, 1875, Caldwell helped organize a massive Republican political rally and barbecue at an abandoned plantation in Clinton, Mississippi. Over 2,000 black men, women, and children attended, seeking a sense of community and hope. Hoping to ease racial tensions, Caldwell had kindly invited the white Democratic candidate for state senate to speak first, ensuring he was met with polite attention. But the peace did not last. As soon as a Republican speaker took the stage, a group of heavily armed white men from nearby Raymond deliberately disrupted the rally. Caldwell immediately stepped forward, risking his life to calm the crowd and prevent an escalation. Suddenly, a white agitator drew his weapon and fired. Gunfire tore through the crowd like rain from heaven. The peaceful picnic transformed into a horrific slaughterhouse. Parents scrambled to shield their children as white vigilantes fired indiscriminately into the fleeing crowds. By the time the initial chaos subsided, several black attendees, including 2 children, lay dead alongside 3 white men. But the initial clash was only the catalyst. In the hours and days that followed, the white paramilitary Modocs launched a full-scale invasion of Clinton. They drew up death lists, hunting down any black person who possessed property, education, or political influence. They executed up to 50 black people over the next few days, leaving bodies in the woods and fields as a horrific warning to the community. Caldwell's own home was vandalized and several of his closest neighbors were butchered. Hundreds of black residents fled into the swamps or escaped to the capital city of Jackson, begging Republican Governor Adelbert Ames for protection. Desperate, Governor Ames begged President Grant for troops to protect black voters before the November elections. Grant refused. The North, he said, was tired of the South's annual autumnal outbreaks. Abandoned, Ames made one last move. He formed a state militia and put Senator Charles Caldwell in command. While others fled, Caldwell armed black militiamen and marched through Hinds County to claim government weapons. An armed black man in command enraged white Mississippi. They realized Mississippi could never be theirs while Caldwell lived. He was marked for death. The fraudulent November elections of 1875 overthrew Mississippi's Reconstruction government. Through violence and ballot box stuffing, white Democrats seized the legislature and local offices. Most black leaders went into hiding, their political protection gone. But Charles Caldwell stayed in Clinton. He walked the streets with his head high, refusing to abandon the land he'd fought to reform. White supremacists knew they couldn't face him in daylight. Across the county, he was known as a dead shot, a man of immense strength who slept with his weapons and would take several men down with him in a gunfight. To eliminate him, they had to rely on the weapon of a coward: betrayal. On the cold, dark night of Christmas Day, December 25, 1875, one of Caldwell's friends, Buck Cabell, invited him for a festive holiday drink. Cabell was someone Caldwell considered a friend and associate, a white man with whom he had shared business and political discussions. Caldwell, operating on a code of honor that his enemies did not share, accepted the invitation. The two men walked into the store and descended into the cellar, away from public view. Cabell poured the drinks, raised his glass, and clinked it against Caldwell's. That toast was a prearranged signal to the assassins hiding in the shadows. As Caldwell raised his glass to drink, a white gunman hidden outside fired through the cellar window, hitting Caldwell squarely in the back. The heavy-caliber bullet tore through his skull, shattering his jaw and neck. The impact slammed him to the ground, pooling blood across the floor. In that horrific moment, the conspirators expected Caldwell to die quietly or beg for his life. They were wrong. Through sheer superhuman willpower, Charles Caldwell pulled his broken body up from the ground. He refused to die on his knees. Standing upright, he looked down at his clothes, calmly smoothed out the wrinkles in his blood-stained coat, and turned his gaze directly onto the white men who had gathered to watch him die. His jaw was shattered, and his mouth was filled with blood, but his voice remained clear, steady, and loud enough to echo through the cellar. He looked his killers in the eye and delivered his final words. "Remember, when you kill me, you kill a gentleman and a brave man. Never say you killed a coward. I want you to remember it when I am gone." Stunned and terrified by his unnatural bravery, the white mob panicked. They unleashed a frantic barrage of gunfire, riddling his body with dozens of bullets until he finally fell. Not content with murdering the senator, the mob hunted down his brother, Samuel Caldwell, and executed him that same night. Following the double murder, an all-white grand jury was called to investigate the assassination of Senator Charles Caldwell. Despite the fact that dozens of white men in Clinton knew exactly who carried out the plot, a wall of racial silence protected the killers. The jury concluded that the affair was shrouded in mystery and claimed they could find no proof to attach guilt to any man. No one was ever arrested, charged, or spent a single day in prison for the murder of the state senator. The assassination of Charles Caldwell was the final nail in the coffin of Reconstruction in Mississippi. It signaled to the entire nation that white supremacy had successfully reclaimed the South through bloodshed, ushering in the dark, century-long era of Jim Crow segregation and disenfranchisement. But while his enemies succeeded in taking his life, they failed to destroy his legacy. Charles Caldwell did not die a victim. He died a martyr, a man whose final breath was an act of pure defiance against racial tyranny. That brings us to the end of this video. And if this story changed the way you see Reconstruction era and the happenings of the period, leave a like and subscribe for more forgotten stories that history tried to erase. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.